Baldur's Gate 3 can be overwhelming for new players, so we're here to help you get your footing, and veterans, speak up in the comments below with your best secrets for combat in BG3. In many exploration games, when you see something on the horizon, it's probably a quest full of magic and whimsy. In Baldur's Gate, it's probably something a few levels above you that's going to murder you. I've been killed by distempered magic cats, harpies, firestones, goblins, magic warping spiders, and bad dialogue rolls. I've killed people I was trying to rescue. I may or may not, as a cat, kicked off a small genocide that gated my story progress behind an unkillable mob for days. You name it, it wants to and has the ability to kill you. You are not, at least at first, powerful or special in this world. Act accordingly and don't hesitate to size up a situation and run away. When you get far enough from a fight, you get a prompt to flee. If you haven't played D&D, there's no shame in starting on narrative-focused difficulty. A good number of fights will start with a conversation. When exploring, the party member you are controlling is almost always the one who gets pulled into that conversation, and you may be able to avoid conflict altogether. For example, an animal-speaking druid can talk an owlbear out of murder, a cleric can show empathy to a warring faction, and a warrior can intimidate a goblin. The best way to win a battle is to get what you want without having to swing in the first place. When that fails, treat every initial fight of the game as life and death. Don't hold back or keep good items in reserve, it will just get you killed. Use your health potions, throw bombs if you have them, and exhaust your skills and magic. It can all be recovered after a fight. Before getting into a fight, spam the quick save. You will be reloading saves a lot. And speaking of, in order to understand what you're trying to do in between fights, you need a baseline of knowledge. As a character, you have a few different categories of things you can do with varying costs. Basic spells and abilities are called cantrips, and can be used an unlimited number of times a day. After that, there are level 1 and level 2 spells with a limited number of uses and costs respectively, 1 or 2 points from a spell slot. Once these are depleted, you'll need to rest to recharge them. Finally, there are bonus actions you can do during every turn. The game will display what resources are needed in order to perform any of your different actions. In one day, you can do 2 short rests and 1 long rest. Short rests will restore some HP and many spells, which will specify in their description if they take a short or long rest. You can do these frequently after particularly tough fights. A long rest will teleport you to a local minicamp. You need to have 40 camp supplies to do this. This restores all health points and actions. There's really no downside to long rests outside of the cost, which is easy to recoup as you explore. Don't be afraid to end the day fully if your characters are all wounded or exhausted. At your main camp, you can do all of the above and advance the story or relationships by talking to your companions. They often want to talk about major events. Here, you can also recover items you sent to camp, which you can do at any time during the game, especially when encumbered. Other must-dos outside of combat are to break up and distribute supplies like health potions, but in a pinch, this can be done in combat. If you spot enemies and they haven't seen you, you can kick off fights with sneak attacks or bonus damage before official combat begins. There are also persistent spells and turn-based spells. Permanent spells can be cast before battle, but turn-based spells seem to count down immediately, so you need to jump into a fight ASAP before it wears off. Some of our favorite actions to kick off combat are to grease the ground and set it on fire, throw explosives, or even just lead with a damaging spell. Doing this correctly can give you a big advantage, forcing enemies to cross hazardous terrain while taking damage. Keep the flames going by adding more burning substances such as spider webs, and then backing away as you fight. There are also plenty of ways to get close before attacking, like disguising your race with magic or mimicking creatures in the local area. Goblins won't bat an eye as a druid walks up to them in spider form. Baldur's Gate 3 is full of different terrain, ground cover, and items in the environment you can take advantage of. It has the usual exploding barrels and plenty of flammable surfaces. You can open and close doors as cover or use choke points to funnel enemies into kill areas where you can fight just a few at a time. At the same time, avoid jamming your squad into a doorway where you'll be forced to fight one versus however many of them are on the other side. Ranged characters have advantages on high ground. A good starting place is just to start fights that force enemies to cross terrain that slows them, including simple mud. Jumping is a big part of combat in BG3. You can use it to leap over grounds that can entangle you like spiderwebs, or vault over your own team's head to deliver a final blow. It is a free bonus end of round action, meaning you can move a lot more than your initial movement phase allows. As you play, you can get enhanced versions of this, letting you go higher and further, as well as negate fall damage. Also a bonus action, shoving is a fantastic tool always available at the end of your turn if you haven't used another bonus action like disengage or leap. It has a few different uses. Catch an enemy in the right spot and you can shove them off a cliff. Hurling things is just fun to do, and given your strength stat is high enough. If you're a barbarian with rage active, you can even pick up enemies and use them as weapons. Alternatively, you can throw members of your own party to gain advantages like high ground in combat or to cross broken bridges out of combat. As a starting player, the most important thing to know here is to diversify your party. The standard team composition of rogue, wizard, fighter, cleric will make the most of every situation. Certain characters will be more advantageous depending on where you are, and that's the character you'll want to directly control. There are plenty of morally grey situations where you don't really want to kill the opposing party, but oh boy, do they want to kill you. There's a handy toggle here that allows you to swap over to non-lethal damage, which some of your party members will approve of. If you screwed up in character creation and you're dying a lot, do not hesitate to start over, or if you can wait, a character will show up at your camp eventually who can change your class for a cost. There's also multi-classing, which is a bit more advanced. I thought my Druid would make a great tank, but wound up using them mostly to get to places the rest of the party couldn't reach, meaning they worked alone often and worked better as a stealth and subterfuge focused build. This is what stood out to us when learning combat in Baldur's Gate 3. There is a lot to take in, so give yourself permission to make plenty of mistakes. That's what this game is all about. Sound off in the comments below with what caught you most off guard and how you overcame it. Thank you for watching, and make sure to check out our review and more Baldur's Gate coverage that's coming down the line.